Hey, everybody, and welcome to Scouting the League. Really excited to jump into our conversation today with Deputy Athletics Director, Chief Strategy Officer, and General Manager at Virginia, Tyler Jones. We go into all things football, roster building, how Virginia did what they did this year, what the future is, and so much more. Neil leads the conversation today as we talk all things NCAA. It's going to be a really fun one. Some great insight from one of the ones doing it the right way. It certainly shows up in that record and what they're building at Virginia. But before we jump in with Tyler, make sure you head over, like, subscribe, share this podcast wherever you are listening and watching, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that video portion over on YouTube. Hit those buttons that help us out so much. Hit that subscribe button. Give us 5 stars. Most importantly, leave us comments and share with a friend. If you are getting educated, learning something, maybe just wanting to listen in on different perspectives from around the football world, help us out by doing all those things. Love to hear from you. Love to hear comments. Love to hear what you want to know and listen to in the future. So get all of that done here as we are getting started here. Of course, I am Rodrik David at Right Step ADV is where you can find me. My website, rsafootball.com. Read more about me. Get in touch there as well. If you're a scout or aspiring scout listening today, make sure you head over and check out thescoutingcommunity.com. Resource for both of you, whether you are a current NFL scout that just needs a little more information on any number of areas in the world of scouting and football, or you're an aspiring scout, want to be sitting in a front office someday, make sure you check it out all at thescoutingcommunity.com. Check out our partner over at bluemaca.com. Use code SCOUTING20 at checkout. Let them know we sent you and get a little discount on that order. Insoles that will upgrade your shoes just as soon as you put them in there. Again, they are just shoes with a regular old stock insole until you put that Blue Maca insole in there. So make sure you do that, bluemaca.com. Use code SCOUTING20. Of course, Neil Stratton at Inside the League is going to be leading the conversation today. Neil is doing everything he can to get ready for both of those events up here at the Combine. We will talk about those at the end. Wednesday, February 25th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern is the Inside the League seminar. A bunch of awards. Scouting the League will be live streaming that on Twitter and YouTube, so make sure you check it out. And the symposium that Neil talks about today, Friday, February 27th, 8:30 a.m. at the Indiana Convention Center. All of that can be found at InsideTheLeague.com, or more importantly, check out Neil on InsideTheLeague.com. Tyler Jones is at TrayJO8, TrayJO8. Make sure you give him a follow. Be nice to him, as we always ask you to be to our guests. But with that, let me kick it over to Neil.
The 2026 Dropback ITL Symposium will be held Friday, February 27th in the Indiana Convention Center at the NFL Combine, 8:30 a.m. to 11. Last year, one of our guests was Tyler Jones. He was crazy enough to join us last year. He's crazy enough to join us today on the Scouting the League podcast. Tyler, welcome aboard.
Thanks, man. Great to be here. Excited for the conversation.
All right, so you're the GM at the University of Virginia. Tyler, how did you get there? One of the things we like to talk about is origins. Kind of what's your story, man?
Yeah, so just finished up my third football season at UVA, 4th year. Prior to my arrival here at UVA, spent some time at Northwestern University in Evanston. Worked primarily with our men's basketball program there at NU. Then prior to that, was at Cleveland State University in Cleveland, Ohio, non-football institution. So we call those 1 AAA institutions. So primarily basketball there. And then before Cleveland State, served at Ohio State University. More in a business development role there on the business side of college athletics, on the revenue side of the shop there in Columbus, and then short amount of time at the University of Tennessee, and then my alma mater, Eastern Michigan University, where I was a dual sports student athlete. So my helmet up there, played football, was a football scholarship student athlete, and then I walked on to the basketball team my last 2 years there as an undergrad and graduate student. So earned undergraduate in business, minor in marketing, and earned my master's degree in sport administration. So I've been serving in college athletics for almost 20 years, and at a number of different institutions. They're all very diverse, and it's really helped me acquire different skills, different experiences from, a private institution like Northwestern, an urban serving institution, non-football, such as Cleveland State University, and then a number of institutions with different profiles.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, not just a football player on the team, but a pass catching machine. 23 receptions, I believe it was a record, may still be. Is that correct?
Yes.
23 receptions in
my
one game?
last collegiate football game tied a record for most receptions in a game at 23. And then the week before at 17 catches, so 40 catches over 2 games. And
that's a good season for some guys. We
tossed the ball around a ton, man. It was like a 4-hour game. We threw the ball a ton against our rivals. And but yeah, man, was blessed to play 2 sports that I loved growing up, which was college football and college basketball, and have fond memories with phenomenal teammates in 2 different sports. And I had the pleasure to fulfill my dream athletically, but also academically to earn 2 degrees while competing at the Division I level. Really proud of that, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
So Tyler, we focus on one sport in this podcast, obviously, but gun to head, what's your favorite sport?
It depends on the season.
Come on, man!
I'm telling you, man, there's nothing like in the fall. You got 100,000 folks at a sporting event, right? And it is truly a commitment, right? So nothing beats a fall day putting on the pads. But in the wintertime, hey, it's always 72 and sunny in the basketball gym, right? So in the winter, to get a chance to play basketball. My dad played college hoops, so that was a bond that him and I had, playing college basketball. I would say, a basketball was in my crib growing up, because my dad was a college basketball player. He wasn't tough enough to play football. That was my sport growing up. That was my sport. I got a chance to play a sport that my dad didn't play. But for me, man, I'm in love with both sports, but it truly is a seasonal thing for me, and it's been that since I could remember. Fall was about football. Winter was about hoops.
I think today the model for today's young person who wants to pursue a job in football, a career in football, is to either rush to the coach's office and volunteer or to rush to the personnel office and volunteer. You chose business development. You chose a background that's a lot more oriented towards maybe even the marketing side of it, but certainly the money side of things, the financial side of things, which gives you a different perspective. Why did you go in that direction, Tyler? Was it your choice or kind of the way things just kind of worked out?
I think it's the way things worked out for me. And, when I was a young student athlete, my mentor was Dr. Derek Gregg. He was the youngest athletic director in the country when I was in college, and someone that I looked up to as an intercollegiate athletics director. So early in my career, I wanted to be him, right? I wanted to learn. I wanted to lead my own department and help transform young people, right? Like myself, I see a ton of myself in the young people that I serve. So it started there, just in administration, and then over time, the world of college athletics has transformed, right? So before it was about offering scholarships, right? Get a chance to go to school for free and play a sport that you love and earn a degree. Now there's a business element in terms of compensation and now building a roster and those types of things. So I didn't really have a desire to be a general manager. That wasn't my goal early in my career, but you either innovate or you die, right? So you learn and adapt if you want to compete at the highest level. And the adaptation in college athletics was around professionalizing the infrastructure, which is your front office, general manager, business development, so on and so forth. So just, challenge myself to grow and be a lifelong learner and adapt and pivot, if your ultimate goal is to compete at the highest level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Now, you mentioned you didn't aspire to be GM. Tyler, there were no GMs when you started out. It's a very new phenomenon and something that I am still really trying to get a grasp on as the industry continues to move in that direction. And as I talk to GMs, it seems like no two of them have exactly the same role
Yep.
and don't do exactly the same things. Sometimes it's mostly player evaluation. Sometimes it's managing contracts and making offers. Sometimes it's just kind of being that person who kind of simulates things.
Yep.
What do you spend most of your time on? Are there any things you don't do among that traditional GMs do?
Yeah, it's you kind of set it up really well. Is that the title means different things to different institutions, right? So for us and how our athletic director wanted to structure it was more akin to a professional model, right? Where I don't report to the head football coach, right? So I report to the athletics director, which is similar to how a professional franchise is structured, where the GM typically reports to the owner slash CEO slash president of the club. So she was really intentional in trying to bifurcate that a little bit, where this front office person has a direct reporting line to the athletic director. And then, I have the pleasure and the responsibility to manage really the day-to-day operations of the football program. So that's from personnel in conjunction with the head coach, right? We work very, very closely together, but personnel, budget, scheduling, managing of the cap, negotiating contracts. So that all funnels through me with a dotted line, to the athletic director, in this case, kind of the team president or the owner. And that was really, really intentional, for us, is to make sure the coaches are focusing on building the team, right? Winning games, recruiting, and taking some of that burden off of the head coach and the staff around negotiating contracts, managing the salary cap. And it proved to work well for us this year, in 2025, where the Coach Elliott will say, I don't know how much the guys make. And he can say that honestly. So that he can just evaluate and play the best players, and it's not really influenced on how much we are investing in said players. So it works for us. It takes incredible amount of humility to do that as a coach, to give up a little bit of control, right, over your program. So it takes some humility. It does require trust. I mean, Coach Elliott and I spend a ton of time together, right? We spend a ton of time together. And I recognize and understand his challenges. And my job is to help serve him, right, in the best way that I can. And that's through spending time, trust, communication. And then, over time, you start to kind of build that equity with the staff. Sometimes I have to come with bad news sometimes. I have to tell them things that they don't want to hear. And that's a part of the job, but that's not absent the humility that the staff has, and then the trust that we've built over time to be able to go into this environment somewhat sight unseen, and kind of, building the plane as we're flying it.
Now, one thing we saw this year for a team in Cal that has a very similar set of responsibilities for the GM is Ron Rivera had to make a change at head coach. Is that within your purview as well, Tyler?
Yeah, all of that. So the day-to-day operation and function of the football program kind of funnels through me, but I report to the athletic director. So I'm not making any decision about the football program absent her guidance and approval. So my job is to provide recommendations for consideration for the athletic director, and share my insight, what I've seen, my recommendation. But, we don't make decisions without collaboration and communication, up and down the organization. But that's a part of my job, is to evaluate the program and provide the athletic director feedback, insight, and those types of things.
Tyler, the traditional, again, the way you would think about college football being in what would have been the closest thing to a GM role is kind of that AD. You used to always think about, man, beholden to boosters, like where the money's coming. Again, you're going to listen to those voices. But again, now that we're talking about equity, private equity, which we'll get to, again, the way a salary cap, again, everything that has changed, has the role that a booster and that boosters playing, has it been minimized some? Is there less of a voice there? Is it still a major part of what you're doing day to day with everything?
Major part, right? I mean, it's significant. you can't do what we do at a high level without support, right? With that support from the institution, that support from the alumni, that support from our very, very passionate donors, right? So they're still a part of it because they have a little bit of ownership of it too. And that there's a shared ownership of, hey, you're investing in what we're doing and believe in what we're doing. I spend a ton of time with donors and explaining to them the needs that we have for us to compete, and then sharing with them how they can be a part of it, right? So ownership versus being a part of it, there's a big difference of that, right? But it's important for our supporters to see that they're a part of our success, and then giving them something that's compelling for them to invest in. Certainly in wins, that helps. When you're winning, they can see that we've helped support the program and the university in building winners. But those key stakeholders are very important to our success, and we can't do what we do without our very passionate and philanthropic supporters. No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Tyler, we have a lot of scouts and aspiring scouts that listen. They will never let me get away if I don't ask, how have you set up your evaluation process? Obviously, college is a little different model, given that coaches are such a big part of how players are seen, and there's a lot of integration required if you're going to bring in a personnel side, and obviously the personnel side is growing at every school right now.
Yep.
You've got a very talented assistant general manager, and I don't mind telling you, even though I don't mean to blow smoke, but I consistently get positive feedback on both you and Justin from NIL agents, and I talk to a lot of them on a regular basis. How have you developed the kind of personnel model? How do y'all come to an agreement on the players you decide to offer?
Yeah, it is a collaborative, deal. I would never tell a coach who to take or who to retain. Now, I may have my thoughts, right, and my recommendations through what I've evaluated and what the market is to say that a wise investment. But it's Coach Elliott's program. Now he has to build the team. Myself and Justin Sparrows, our chief of staff and assistant general manager, our job is to acquire and retain the talent. But it's Coach Elliott in the coaching staff to build the team. Those are two very different deals, right? There's a ton of really talented rosters that aren't very good teams.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we won a ton of games this year, and we're not the most talented roster for every one of those victories. There's a few rosters that have more talent, but you win games with being a better team. That's cohesion, continuity, belief, the things that coaches are required to build. So again, it goes back to that humility and trust. I mean, it seems like just buzzwords, but that matters when you're in it. When you're in the portal, and I call it the portal combat. Like, it is war. Right? It really is war, and you're evaluating the players and assessing them, and you're in the room with the offensive staff, defensive staff, and folks are advocating for players. It boils down to humility and trust, right? And saying, hey, we're all in it together, and we have to make the best decision for the athletic department and for the program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about being right. It's about getting it right. And we challenge each other. And it's great because we have this level of trust and a level of humility where everyone's a part of it. So, but again, I'm not telling a coach to take a player or telling him that he can't take a player, but my job is to advise him on what are the potential consequences of taking the player or not, right? And we all have to live in that decision collectively. So when we leave that room, we're all on the same page. And every guy that we have on our roster, we all love every player on our roster when we leave that room. But in that room, there may be a ton of disagreement, and that happens in any organization, right? So we do have some really robust conversations, some spirited conversations about building the roster, and to me that's healthy conflict.
Yeah,
and it's great. It's healthy in an organization, no doubt.
So is it Coach Elliott coming to you and saying, "Listen, Tyler, we want this player," and you come back and say, "Well, this is probably what the number we're looking at"? I mean, is that kind of how you arrive at how you decide to pursue people, or what's that chain of command look
Yeah, I
like?
mean, we're all in it together. So very rarely is coach bringing a player to the table that we haven't evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
we're evaluating a ton of different players, and we're usually sharing that up to the position coach, to the coordinator, to the head coach. So very rarely does a head coach or Coach Elliott, very rarely does he bring a prospect for consideration that we have not had opportunity to evaluate. Does it
Sure.
happen? Sure. But it's very rare. So Coach Elliott and the staff and the coordinators are heavily involved in the evaluation process. Now the market is going to dictate what the value is for that particular prospect, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not controlled by the coach or myself. I would love to control that. That'll make my job a lot easier to control the market, but the market is a market. So then now we're discussing, is that a wise investment for that particular prospect, given what the agent or their camp is advocating for? And that's where the coach really isn't involved, and there isn't really any value in having them involved. They're going to evaluate the player and say, hey, that would be a great fit schematically, great fit from a culture perspective. And then myself and Justin are working with the representation on what that investment package could look like at the University of Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the nuts and bolts of things, do y'all have a mob of volunteers that are evaluating kind of at the fundamental level? They're watching the high school players, maybe the portal as well. Do those people work on your portal prospects as well? How do you kind of organize that part of it?
Yeah. So we have a number of evaluators that are evaluating high school prospects to 5th-year, 6th-year seniors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And evaluating, and then we have a very unique valuation approach to prospects. How you evaluate a 17-year-old high school prospect is much different than a graduate student, like in terms of their impact and projection. So we have a scoring system and how we evaluate them, and then those are brought up to myself and Justin and some of the position coaches for further evaluation, and then we ultimately make a determination if that's a prospect we want to pursue, and where do we project them on our roster. So we operationalize as much as we can because it's happening so fast, right? So if you don't have a structure or system for folks to be able to work through, it does make it very difficult for us to manage it. So really proud of Justin and how he's built out our evaluation apparatus of our front office to do it in a way that's very streamlined, so a coach understands where they fit in that process, or understand where that particular prospect is in that evaluation pipeline. And it's really paid dividends as you're trying to run fast. You're trying to run as fast as you can without making mistakes. Right. So if you're going too fast, absent a system in the process, that's where you have a higher rate of misses, right? Because you don't have the right infrastructure in place.
How much have you seen that process evolve, change, probably be built upon the last couple of years as again, not that we have gotten to a spot of normal, but hey, all right, we kind of understand the way the portal is going to be. We kind of understand the way the salary cap is going to work. How have you guys managed to kind of continue to kind of smooth out those rough edges to, again, streamline that process?
I mean, it's changed every portal window. Something significant has changed, right? So before it was no salary cap. So that was pre-settlement. So there wasn't a salary cap, and it was 2 portal windows. And then now you have a salary cap, a soft cap, and then 1 portal window, and then the duration of the portal window. So every year it's kind of changed, and it goes back to you innovate or you die, right? So you got to figure out ways to react to the changing landscape, refine your process, tweak your process, and then go to war. And you test it. It's like a game, right? You're game planning and preparing for the portal and roster management, and you feel really, really good about your game plan until you get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson says that all the time. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? So we spend a lot of time in the off season kind of refining. So we'll have in February, we'll kind of get everyone together and debrief what transpired in the portal. Now, what are some things that we can improve on? I talked to a lot of the agents. Hey, what could we have done better in that process, right? So getting that feedback good or bad, is helpful for us to refine our process for the next acquisition window. So I think the part that probably has changed significantly for us, if you go back and look at how we performed in the transfer portal, is that it's been more of a focus for us. And that's almost just a reaction to the landscape, right? So we'll always be a developmental program at Virginia. That's really important to Coach Elliott. You're building the meat and potatoes of your roster through high school recruiting. That would never change for us. Now, how many you take is really predicated on the makeup of your roster. So we had a ton of seniors. We were a very mature team in 25. So we had a ton of attrition through graduation. You can't replenish your roster just with high school guys. Like, that's just not sustainable. So what we're trying to get to is some symbiotic between high school and transfer, and it starts with high school recruiting. So again, we're going to continue to be a developmental program, build through the draft, which is high school. I'm using some vernacular for professional. Build through the draft, which is high school recruiting. That's the lifeblood of our program. And then you use the free agency transfer portal to supplement the things in your roster, not to build your roster. And that takes discipline, that takes some patience, that takes belief from the athletic director on down, is that we have a short-term and long-term process in building our roster, annually.
That high school aspect of things is something I hear a lot about as far as frustration among people, administrators, what have you, because I'm in high school, man. Now I hear about all this NIL money is being tossed around.
Yep.
Do you find that those kids maybe have an outsized impression of what their value is, given that they haven't played a single college snap and they probably are looking for some kind of compensation? Has that been something that's been a struggle?
I wouldn't say it's a struggle. You got to factor this in too. The high school prospects, their experience has changed too, right? Just again, it went from everyone's building their roster through high school recruiting, and then now it shifted to a ton of transfers, right? Before it was the Wild Wild West in terms of athlete compensation, and then now there's a more of a cap. Oh, by the way, there's a roster limit. So all these things are happening and impacting just high school recruiting. So I feel bad. I really empathize for the high school coaches and high school prospects, because the environment is shifting like rapidly. I mean, rapid change that's heavy. So I don't fault them from. I mean, they're naive. They don't have all the information, and then oftentimes the representation, isn't very seasoned. They don't really know. They don't know the college landscape as well. So the challenge is less the people, it's the lack of information and the lack of accurate information that may be influencing a particular prospect, high school or transfer. Otherwise, it's influencing their decision making because it's absent legitimate, real data and information. So the truth tellers, which I hope that Neil, the folks that you chatted with that speak highly of us, is that we're truth tellers. We're going to be honest with you and be really transparent as much as we can, because these folks are just they're ill-informed. They just don't know, and I try not to take it personal. I truly believe that they just don't know. So my job is to provide them as much information for them to make the best informed decision. That's my job. It's not to sell them. Virginia, it is what it is. It's easy for us to go, easy for you to go and research what we're about academically, athletically. So it's our job to give them as much information for them to make the best informed decision. The worst thing I can do is I visit with an agent or a family and they leave and they have questions. I mean, I failed, right? We failed, right? We didn't give them as much information as possible so they can make that best informed decision.
As someone whose existence, financial sustainability depends on serving markets, I wrestle with that in education component and maybe trying to find a way to reach parents and say, these are some of the realities. And I admit that I don't know all of them. I mean, I would if I was even going to try to presume to be that person, I would have to have a lot more discussions with people like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a way, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, to try to give them some modicum of this is kind of what you're looking at. These are some things you're going to need to know. Are there commonalities when it comes to working with high school, often parents, often coaches that are kind of their advocates? Are there ways? There's certain things that if they just knew this, things would be much easier for everyone concerned. Tyler,
It's a great. I mean, that's great question. I don't know if I have the answer. I'm not smart enough to give one. What I've learned, Neil, like, you know, it's telling the truth. So so for an agent or even for a parent, there may not be a ton of upside to tell that prospect the truth. It may not be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my experience, you know, working with agents or family members, or just say representation, because that's a broad term. That can be a relative, it can be an attorney, it can be a trainer, it can be a high school coach. Just the representation is that it's hard to tell a bright-eyed, super excited 17 or 18-year-old the truth. It's hard. Like, it's hard. So I think there's just not enough truth tellers out there to make sure that we're managing expectations for any prospect, high school or otherwise, is where I see. And then there's not a prevalence of like information. So when I talk to GMs in other leagues, they just laugh at me. It's like, your job is impossible. So like, one, there's unlimited free agency. I'm like, yeah. Like, so this is before you have to like recruit a guy 3 times in 1 year, likely. Like, yeah, you get a kid in the summer that commits to you, high school kid. Then you got to keep them in the port from going in the portal in December, and then it was a portal in the spring. It's like 3 times, right? So he's like, wow, that's crazy. He's like, well, you don't have access to all the contracts across your league and see how much that player. No, wait, what? Really? So you can't look up on a database to see what North Carolina paid their long snapper? Like, you can, no, really? So it's a void of information, which means that the other folks can kind of share misinformation that maybe can pull a player into the portal. That's not advisable. So then they pull them into the portal. Oh man, we can get you more. And then they pull them into the portal, and then the market's always right. So the market is like, no, this is truly your value. Now that particular player left a really good, healthy situation because they were advised to do that, because that advisor thought that the market will be able to bear whatever he or she told that prospect. Now they're kind of stuck in the abyss. I see that happen a ton.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, again, it's a lack of information and a lack of truth tellers that are preying on high school and college players, and it's unfortunate.
Yep.
Man.
Now, there's also some really good actors out there. There's some awesome agents that are awesome truth tellers, and like, I love it because they that's important for these young people to hear the truth. So I would say I interact with more of the right agents and right representatives than the not so great ones that are, again, I just think they're just ill-informed. They're not bad people. They just don't understand the landscape, right? Yep. So they're kind of going in there blind. But we're fortunate at Virginia, man. We work with some awesome agencies that get it, that are honest, that are all about the player and getting them the best deal to help them short-term and long-term. And I think it's a little bit about how Virginia attracts, you know, a very unique type of student athlete that typically attracts a certain type of representation, right? Which we've been super grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's valid. Now, you've been around long enough, Tyler, to know probably most of the agents that you're dealing with, if they kind of have an NFL background, those kind of things. I presume that means they would be a bit more professional. Has that been the case?
In my mind, I'm agnostic when it comes to agents. It doesn't matter if you're NFL, MLB, NBA, or what have you. It's about relationships.
Sure.
right? So the relationship that we can cultivate with the agent and agency, and then I'm challenging their relationship with the prospect. So what I've noticed, and again, it's the environment, it's the adults, it's us that created this chaos, right? Where there's some agents that don't know the player, they don't know them that well because it's like speed dating for them. They're trying to find an agent that can help them, and so again, I have to challenge that a little bit of like, how well do you know your client? Right? Like, do you know them, their injury history, and like those types of things? So, yes, the agents that are from a reputable, large firm, do they know a little bit more about the environment than a startup, small boutique agency? Sure, right? But in terms of being user friendly, it's about the people. It's a human thing, not necessarily an NFL, NBA versus an NIL agent, because I've been burned on both ends from NFL agents or a guy that is an agent, and then everyone in between. And I think it's just about relationships, in my opinion.
I could delve into this for another hour. Probably this part of it fascinates me, and I don't think this part of it gets the light shown on it as much as I'd like. But at the same time, I'm also really interested in the future of the game and its financial sustainability, and that's one reason why I value your opinion here, Tyler. Your background is kind of more on the enterprise side of things. We've already talked about that. Is the direction, the path that college football is on right now, is it sustainable? And if not, what does it look like in 5 years? Is the NCAA still around? Are the big schools pulling away from the smaller schools more so than ever? Are we still having G5 schools having to replace literally half their rosters every year? I mean, is that something, can college football continue to look like it does now in 5 years, 10 years, doing what we're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal question. Again, I wish I was smart enough to answer it with a thoughtful plan. I don't think it's sustainable how we're operating. I think that's clear. That it will require some broad changes. I think a lot of folks are in favor of that. What the changes are, that's above my pay grade to determine what the changes are. But I think we can all agree that there's some chaos in the system right now, not just in football, but across all college athletics. I think that's fair. But also I recognize that we have made some changes. As I said before, the last 3 years, we're tweaking things to try to get to a situation where it is sustainable. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by the dialogue at the AD level. I'm encouraged by the dialogue at the commissioner and chancellor level to try to get to a point where it is sustainable. But no, it's not. Currently, it is not. It is not. What that looks like, I mean, you've heard it on different podcasts like yourselves and other folks about super leagues and, separating, from the NCAA and all that stuff. I get it. Those are all things that are sparking some dialogue, which I think is healthy, right? To continue to talk about it. And what I always challenge people, we all know the issues. We need solutions, right?
Exactly.
We all know what the problems are, right? Can someone with courage bring some legitimate solutions? And then let's talk about that. But I'm encouraged by the dialogue. I really am. I think it's great for the sport. It's getting other folks with diversity of thought and experience to come in. That's not just a former coach or former AD. That's healthy. So diversity of thought and dialogue, I'm encouraged by. Is that a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year deal? Who would have thought in 2022 or 2021 that players would be earning money like that? Like I think it was said, but even in the 5-year window, it's exploded and change has been rampant. So I know it's kind of a long-winded answer. I know that you didn't get what you want, but I don't know what the answer is. But I'm encouraged.
To kind of add into that, you're at an institution where football has kind of been almost number 2 to basketball for a little bit. Basketball power, again, obviously we've seen you guys make some runs, but again, obviously a good football program, again, has won a lot of games, successful this year. And that brings up that whole piece of like a lot of the conversation revolves around football. We're a football podcast, but again, there's one other sport that makes money at a lot of schools, and that's men's basketball.
That's right.
Which again, you start splitting and parsing this out. Is it going to be we have a football solution, we have a men's basketball solution, everybody else figure it out under the university? Is it going to be basketball, football kind of coming together? Do you see it being a kind of a three-headed monster? How do you view that?
It's a great question. I mean, football is driving a lot of the conversation, and I think you ask our men's basketball coach, he's awesome. He knows it. He understands it, right? Like, hey, football is driving it. We're in the passenger seat. We want to be in the car with them, right? So I think, at the University of Virginia, it starts with our athletic director. Like, she gets it, right? She is on the college football playoff committee. She's right there, and she understands the landscape of college athletics and how football is driving it. And understanding if football is healthy at your institution, it helps all your other sports. It does. It really does, right? So, yes, is it football and men's basketball driving it? At the University of Virginia, we want to compete for championships across all of our sports.
Right.
Sure.
Like football, from football to squash, right? Not saying one is above the other, but like that's how broad the breadth and depth of our athletic department with 27 sports. We're trying to win at everything, and that's hard. It's difficult, and our AD is taking the most difficult path. Is to try to compete across the board, and it's really, really hard to do in this environment. So It's hard for us to say it's just football and basketball at Virginia. Is that we want to do it all, and we recognize that is a tough putt in this environment. But football is the driver, no doubt.
Yeah, certainly.
So one solution that's been submitted by some, and we're starting to see an interest level there, is private equity.
Mm-hmm.
Private equity, I don't mind telling you, Tyler, scares the bejesus out of me. It is a magnifier for things. But it takes away a lot of the things, at least from my standpoint, of what college athletics really is. It's still about values. It's still about being part of a team, all those kind of things. I don't need to know if Virginia's in talks on that kind of thing. That doesn't interest me as much as, Tyler, what are your thoughts? Am I off base? Are there solutions that could be offered by PE that maybe I'm not seeing? I mean, could it be a net positive, or do you see it as something we need to be wary of?
Yeah, that's a very nuanced question, and just something to ponder is that we have to be open to everything. You have to have an open mind and consider everything. I mean, that's why you hire folks to consider things, to vet things. So I don't know if you got to. I wouldn't say close your mind to it. There's some hair on it, and change is hard. So I recognize that, but having an open mind, I think, is a healthy approach to anything. Certainly in a landscape that changes. I would also say too, pulling kind of the layer, like private equity is already in our environment, right? So a lot of our strategic partners that we have on campuses may be backed by PE, right? So it's in our world. Now, is it in our world to the degree that you're kind of discussing? Not yet, but it could be. So I'm always open to exploring things. It depends on the institution, depends on the conference, depends on the president and university leadership. That there are some schools that are probably a bit more aggressive than others. But it's certainly, a lot of folks are ascertaining it because it's something that's new and different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess we're going to learn more as we go. It's there's no to some degree it's been let out of the box now. I don't know that it's going to be possible to put it back in, even if we wanted to. All right, so Tyler, you talked a little bit about managing the roster, managing expectations from high school all the way on up through veteran players. Is it tougher to acquire players in the portal, or is it tougher to hold on to the ones that you have?
I think it's tough all around. It's tough all around. I think for us, our philosophy is we start with retention. So retention informs acquisition. And that's just if you're in the portal trying to retain and acquire players, like you're kind of you're cooked. That's hard to do with a short window, right, in the transfer portal. So our philosophy at UVA is we're all about continuity, cohesion, culture, and that's really built on the backs of retention. Um, Now, I think the market would say, in terms of time and effort and energy and resources, it probably is a bit more expensive and more difficult to acquire, players, right? Because you got to go out and have conversations, spend time, get them to campus. Yes, but I would rather invest on what that's been in your building and likely been in their homes and spoke to their parents. There's a ton of value in the retention piece, which again is informed by high school recruiting, right? So you're able to visit with them at their high school, in their home, recruit them. They come to your campus several times. You sign them. They're in your building. They know the culture. That's kind of our approach. And again, it's paid dividends for us as we've been, increasing number of wins, year over year, with Tony's leadership here. So I would say the retainment piece is difficult, but if I had to choose I would choose the retainment over the acquisition. Not saying the acquisition is not important, right? It's really important, but hard to be in the market trying to acquire and retain simultaneously. That's difficult to do.
Is there anything that y'all do differently or to try to differently to try to encourage that retention? I mean, is that something y'all think about? Is it something that's kind of part of your strategy, maybe part of your culture, to try to amplify that as much as possible?
Yeah, it starts with our head football coach. So if you look at the staff, the continuity with our staff, right, our position coaches, it's been really strong. And you're going to have attrition and guys move on and take different responsibility. That's healthy, but that's a reflection of the leadership where young men want to be here. And typically guys that you retain are likely taking less to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's the culture, it's how you treat people, the high school kids, the kids that have been in your program for 7 years or the transfers, is how you treat them. So in my mind, we're retaining players every day. Mm-hmm. Like when they step foot on ground for the first time, it's a retainment piece. You're re-recruiting your roster every year. So yes, retainment, you sit down with them, you talk about their contract, sure. That's the kind of administrative piece, but we're retaining our players now. Right now, we are retaining our players for post 2026. And if you're not thinking about it that way, you're wasting a lot of time, right? You're wasting time and you're just kicking that can down the road and saying, hey, we're going to talk about retention in November. It's too late, in my opinion, right? Yeah. So, and that starts with our head football coach. I mean, he is one of the best that I've been around of engagement. You see him, FaceTime a player at any time just to check in, or call a parent just to check in with their parent, call a high school coach. He's all about the relational component. And despite what you hear, where it's transactional and it's money and it's about playing time, it's a human business. We're around, and they're human. They have emotion, and they thrive and crave connection. And that's just our program. It's a relational family program, and I think it has paid dividends for us.
Now, even when you develop relationships, sometimes, Tyler, things get a little crazy. What's the most outrageous thing a player has asked for? What's the most outrageous an agent has asked for? And how did you respond to that? I mean, when a lunatic friend starts to, I mean, I know it's not easy, Tyler. You're a very composed person. I've known you long enough to know that.
Yeah.
How do you keep your composure, and how do you respond to that? And what were the asks, and kind of how did you deal with those kind of things?
Yeah, man, we can probably write a memoir of all the things that has been requested. And I try not to take it personal. you got like it's hard not to take it personal because they're just obscene requests, and you got to put yourself in a frame of mind. It's like the worst that we can say is no. So as an agent, you're like, all right, just ask and see what they say. So I try not to take it personal, and I try to encourage my staff. And sometimes it may get to a coach. They're like, don't look at the young man differently because their agent or a loved one asked the question, because they may not even know that it was requested on their behalf. So again, it's the human piece and leading with empathy. But we're talking about like private hours, like, private, charter flights for games to suites to lodging for loved ones and friends and extended family. Cars, obviously, those things. But I can't think of anything that was a one of one. That's pretty standard across the board of requests. But yeah, man, it can come from different angles. It very rarely is it coming from the student athlete.
Right.
Yeah.
Very rarely that is coming from them. So again, you got to look at it of like, let's not cast judgment or question a young man's character, because that could just be, someone in their circle that's asking unbeknownst to the player. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, though. It's hard not to to associate requests with that prospect. It's hard to do, but I've seen it several times where the player or sometimes the family is not even aware of the request.
Yeah.
Do you find that the agent himself, or let me, how to phrase this? Do you find that more often it's the professional agents who are professional at being audacious, or is it the parents who maybe don't understand that nobody asked for that who are giving you the more outrageous requests?
Oh, man. I can't pinpoint any correlation to be candid with you, because it could be the agent is the one formally asking, but it could be on behalf of someone else. You just don't know. So again, I try not to cast any aspersions on anyone, and just say, hey, we can or can't do it. It's likely a no anyway for most of those requests that are just beyond what the range of compensation is for a particular student athlete. But again, like the worst that we can say is no in their mind. Now, they don't understand that could create a perception about the young man, right, that's informed by the request. And I typically don't bring that to the coach, because I want that coach to see that prospect for what they see and what that young man has said, right? So it's protecting the coaches from that. That's a burden that myself and our assistant GM, Justin Sparrows, have to carry, right? So I can't watch games the same as I used to anymore. Right? It's almost like when you find out that Santa Claus isn't real, right? It's just
Wait,
like,
what?
oh, man, Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Sorry to break the news.
Spoiler alert for everybody out there. Hopefully your kids aren't listening.
So you look at the game a little bit differently than what I maybe observed before. But I want to preserve that same thing for our coaches, for our staff, is that I want you to coach your butts off and play the best player that fits UVA, that fits the scheme, that's going to help us win games. If that's a walk-on, great, go for it. If you're gonna help us win games, play him. Like, I don't want there to be any influence on your decision, and I think our coaches appreciate that. And one of the cool things that one of our transfers said that was a cool moment is that he came on his visit and he said, like, every person that I spoke to had like a purpose, right? It wasn't any commingling. So like the position coach didn't talk to me about my contract, right? It was just about my position. The head coach didn't talk about my position or my contract. It was about the culture, the program, the University of Virginia. And then I talked to Tyler or Justin about the finances. This is what the package is. So like they kind of know it's intentional. How you come on, who you interact with, it's very intentional. And that's a credit to our AD. Like, she had a vision of how she wanted this thing to work, right? And I didn't know what it was until she had to explain it to me. And I saw kind of how I would fit, how we would fit in it. And that's a really good indication of like we're doing it in a way that serves the prospect, but also serves the coaching staff. Where we don't want you to get intertwined in that. Like that's not helpful for you. That's why I'm here. That's why Justin's here. So that was a cool moment to say, like, even for that doesn't really know us that well, that it was very intentional. Whomever they spoke with, it was intentional conversation, and it was direct and focused. So they knew exactly who to go to for whatever need that they have while they're here. I'm really proud of that. And that starts with our leadership with Carla and Tony believing in it and being disciplined in it, and being consistent.
Yeah, well, I think the proof is in the pudding. Again, you look at what you guys did on the field last year, continue to build on it. Again, the hard court, not a big basketball guy, but again, I expect you guys to make a run again. And, maybe this conversation will influence a bracket pick when it comes down to it, because, always important to get those bracket rights come March Madness.
Yes, right.
Again,
that's true.
But you guys are certainly doing it the right way. And again, the conversation here, again, fascinating that to hear from people doing it the right way, that are taking it the right way. Again, Neil is continuing to bring it. Again, you were part of the symposium last year. This year it's happening again, February 27th. Again, make sure you check out Neil's Twitter page. He is at Inside the League on Twitter for all details on that, on the seminar that's happening on the 25th. Tyler, you are at TreyJ08. Check the show notes for that handle. Again, if you're going to hit him up, be nice. As we always say, if you want to be mean, you want to beat people up, beat Neil up, beat me up, I'm over at Right Step ADV as we continue to bring you the conversation, get the insight on people that are doing it the right way, schools, departments that are doing it the right way, innovating. Certainly some that came up a lot. But Tyler, we really appreciate it, and best of luck again throughout the rest of this spring and summer into the fall.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate being here, and thank you all for what you all do for us, right? Just in terms of bringing us together, idea sharing, best practices, lessons learned. It's hard for us to mobilize individually, but having folks like you guys doing it on our behalf and inviting us to participate is really helping us innovate. So I'm grateful for that and super appreciative.
Awesome.
See you on the 27th.
Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.